Welcome to this episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where hosts Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessy unlock the secrets to crafting a sales strategy that truly resonates. Today, they delve into the art of constructing ideal client profiles and aligning your messaging to meet the precise needs of your audience. Discover how to transform your approach to ensure your sales messages reach the right ears and strike a chord, leading to increased engagement and conversions. Whether you're looking to refine your current strategies or build new ones from the ground up, this discussion will equip you with the tools to create more meaningful connections with your clients. Stay tuned as Kevin and Sean guide you through a masterclass in optimizing your sales process for maximum impact.
Guilty as charged. Sean, I'm going to go ahead and label you as guilty too. And for everybody listening to this podcast, I bet they're guilty as well. Here's what I'm guilty of. Sending a message to what I think is a good prospect or client without thinking through the process. I don't have a strategy that's fully baked, ready to take to market. So for today, let's talk about sales strategy, but you and I both know we can't cover all things sales strategy. There's a who, what, why, where, when, where, how, who's on first, and who's cooking the cake for after the ball game. That was a terrible analogy. Hey, so anyway, we need to talk about three main things that everyone in this listening audience, every one of our customers, and you and I for our own businesses should do first when it comes to acquiring new clients and having a strategy. And they are, you got the drum roll ready? Number one, you need a client profile. That's got a longer tail to it, but just know right now we're going to label that client profile, ideal client profile. Number two, you need a message. What are you going to say? What are the words? And number three, what's your offer? So have a message, a method, an audience, and a why. Those are the three things that wrap up the three major leading parts of creating your sales strategy. If you're out there listening and say to yourself, hey, I've got an ideal client, but I think I've got an offer. If your offer is, here's my commercial pricing, that's not what we're talking about. Stay tuned and we'll dig into that.
Let's talk about that very first one. What does that ideal customer profile look like? So we've talked a little bit about this on our old podcast. If you've kind of listened along the way over the last 2 years, you will find that we've talked about ideal customer profile several times. Which kind of customers actually buy your product? What kind of things do they use it for? What is a perfect customer? A customer you love to sell to and they love to buy from. Take your best 3, 5, 10 customers, the ones you just love, that you adore, and say, what do they all have in the same thing? What are they all alike? They're all in the same industry, they all do the same thing. I don't know. I don't know your business because we're talking on a podcast and I'm not getting any feedback right now. But something is unique and the same for all 10 of those favorite 10 customers or 5 customers. Write that down. Figure out what that is. What is that one thing that they all have in common? Now let's do the thing that most of them have in common. Let's do a couple of those, and then let's kind of build on what does that look like? What kind of company is that? And then I'm going to scare you because then I'm going to ask you, now what about the people within the company? Because we sell to people. And your ideal customer profile not only talks about the company, the logo, the building, but it also talks about the people within the building that are actually going to make the decision. Because even though it's B2B, it's person to person. And we're still selling to people. And so you have to understand, what do you do for that person that is going to buy your product, or persons, because you probably have a product that a lot of people have to be involved in. That's the very first thing that you have to identify in your sales strategy.
Sean, that is hitting the nail on the head. Let's come back to all these things and give people at the end of the podcast, let's give them a little bit of ways to organize their thoughts. We'll come back and line out some ways to organize your client profiles. But the second thing is the message, right? So the message is how we talk to them. And oftentimes people like Sean and I get a call to come help us sales organizations because they say things like, nobody's responding to my outreach. Or when they respond, their expectations are for A and I'm offering B. There's a misalignment with the message, which means you're sending the wrong message. If you're a dentist and all you get is people with foot pain, you're sending out the wrong message about your practice. If we're sales leaders, fractional VPs of sales, and people call us for accounting services, Sean and I are sending out the wrong message, right? We got to get the message aligned to that ideal client profile. That's why we start with the ideal client profile, so that when we write or create or construct a message that's value-based to that ideal client, we get to ask ourselves, if I was a person in my ideal client profile, would this message resonate with me? And oftentimes, and unfortunately, so if you're in this next category I'm about to describe, know that you're not alone. A lot of people have this challenge, and there is a fix, and we're happy to help you fix yours. But the problem we often see are I, me, my, we statements. They look like our feature set is, we do this for this or that industry. We, I, me, solve this problem, right? So the idea that it's an I statement, we want to encourage you as sellers, professional sellers, to think about, what does the customer get? What is the benefit? The benefit is how they experience your solution. The fun one that Sean and I use a lot is, drill bits and holes. And more specifically, what goes through the hole that you've drilled with the drill bit. People buy the drill bit, but what they're really buying is the hole that their thing will fit through, right, at the end of the process. So when people buy sales leadership or sales coaching, they're not buying our words and brains on paper. They're buying our ability to upskill and enhance a business, make a sales process repeatable, scalable, forecastable. They can hire people into systems. Those are the outcomes. And why would they buy those things? Those are kind of features. It's because their business is growing. When you started your business, you're out there in listener land. When you started your business or started selling for a business, you took on the responsibility of providing the top line revenue for the entirety of the employee set. Whether somebody's working in quality, distribution, manufacturing, productions, finance, administration. As a salesperson, it is now your responsibility, or a sales leader, your greater responsibility to lead and drive the revenue that pays everyone's livelihood. People are relying on us, so it's really important to know who we're talking to and using the words that matter, your message.
That's fantastic, Kevin. I'm looking forward when we kind of dig into this if we have time at the end of the podcast. But let's talk about number 3, the offer. Now, as Kevin said earlier, the offer isn't about my list price is this, and I'm going to give you this kind of a discount, and therefore you should buy. That is not the offer. That may be the proposal, but the proposal is not the offer. The offer is, what does your product or service, and I'm just going to say all services are products, let's just kind of go there. What does your product do to make the customer's life better, or make the customer's business better? That is the offer. That is what you have to figure out, and you have to present accurately to the customer. You have to make sure the customer or the prospect understands what that offer is. Long time ago, back in the mid-'80s, Miller Hyman wrote a book. Miller and Hyman, two different people, two gentlemen. They wrote a book called Strategic Selling. It's considered to be the granddaddy of all sales books today. The book is still available, but it's the second edition or third or 14th edition or whatever. Go ahead and read it. In the show notes, I'll put the link to it. But go ahead and read it. If you can find that old original version, it's much better. But in there, it talked about the difference between where the customer is and where they want to be. And your offer has to build up where they want to be. You have to not only understand from talking to them, from talking to your existing customers, and figure out, well, this is where your customers get when they buy your product, where they could be, but also where they could aspire to be. So they may have a goal of, I want to improve the efficiency of my sales department by 22%. That might be what their stated goal is. That's what they've said, this is what we want to do. And then you have a conversation with them and you convince them through your messaging. And because you're talking to the right customer, your ideal customer profile, you can say, but you could get to 33% or 42% or whatever the case may be. I don't know your product. What can they aspire to? That may be over and above what they really want to get to or what they thought was possible. So the goal for selling is to understand where did you get them after they bought. But the goal for really selling and eliminating your competition and really setting yourself up for success is to teach them to aspire to something greater. I mentioned strategic selling, talked about that gap of where they are to where they want to be. Rain Group, which is another great training class that's out there, talks about the aspiration, where they could get. There's certain classes within the Rain Group that do that. And if you want to know more about those, you can ask Kevin and I, and we can help you get there. Also be show notes that'll explain that as well. But where do they aspire to be? That is your offer. Try to make your offer, not your proposal, your offer, aspirational. How do you get to be even better than you possibly could be with any of my competitors? That's why you should come to me. That's what you want to say for your offer.
Let's push in the clutch here and shift gears to the examples. So since we've just talked about the offer, one of my commercials that I go back to, here's a relevant for everybody. You've probably seen this commercial. I think I saw it during one of the Super Bowls. It's a Subaru commercial, right? When you talk about the offer, Subaru is a car manufacturer. We all know that. They have 4 wheels, 2 to 4 doors, a roof, a windshield, side mirrors. That's their thing, and it has a price. This is where we're creating differentiation. That's not what Sean and I are talking about when we talk about the offer. The Super Bowl ads says they survived. It's the picture of this grotesque kind of car that's smashed and beaten, and the message is they survived. They're selling safety, families, avoiding tragedy, those things. That's what the offer is. So when you think about your product, what is the thing you're selling in those kinds of terms? So there's an example of an offer. Now let's go back through it and let's talk about the message for a minute, because the message, keeping you organized, it's how your customer measures value. So I do this example in any talk I do or any customer I work with. It's the 3-column exercise. Create on a blank sheet of paper 3 columns. The first column is your prospect or customer name. The second column, you put in what you think they need, like your product or feature or the problem they're trying to solve. But then in the third column, this is where it gets really valuable. The message is how you think they will measure value in their terms. It's not cost per hour, not the uptime. It's really what are we solving for them and what does their business get in their terms? How do they measure value? So that's the message. So when you're crafting messages for a business that has a potential solution that you can offer them and what they get for that, start with the value they get and then track back to the person. And here's the fun thing. Here's the behind the curtain kind of statement. If you do this for enough companies, you can actually erase the company name and just put it in an industry or a type of customer. And now you've got somewhat of a loose structure for a marketing plan. Real simple, simply elegant. 3 columns, who, the product, and the benefit in the value in which the customer identifies. So, Sean, bring us back with the ICP here and the demographics.
Yeah, so actually, you have to know your customer profile. You have to know what's going on. You really have to know that you're calling on this company and not that kind of company. That doesn't mean that you don't offer value to the other company, but who is in your sweet spot? Think of it as the target when you're playing darts. Who's that red dot in the middle? The one that if you can get in front of that kind of company and they're in that kind of situation, they're just going to buy. They're just going to immediately just pull out the checkbook and say, where do I sign the check? Who do I send the purchase order to? That's the one you really want to focus on. And then we can slowly expand out and get ones that are not so much in the center and maybe will require a little bit more selling work. And here's the secret as we run down in our 15 minutes here. Notice how we talked about 3 different things. We talked about the customer, who's the ideal customer, what's the ideal message to that customer, and what's the ideal offer to that customer. Notice how they're all 3 interdependent. So it's not unusual that when you start this process with one of them, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the third one, now you got to go back again and do it all over again because they all depend on each other. That's why we did all 3 of these together as the strategy for going after new clients. These 3 things are intercombined and they are together. You got to do them together. You got to go back and forth and really refine back and forth to make sure they're right. Your message is depending on your offer. Your offer is depending upon your message. Your offer is depending upon the ideal client profile. All of these things are interdependent. and you're going to do them together. And that's key for being successful in all of sales, to make sure that everything's aligned, but especially sales where you're going after a new client. Now, in the future, we're going to do this again, and we're going to talk about how do you go after existing customers, and we're going to talk about how you grow your customer base and how you get more from your customers. But right now, let's just think about, how do I get some new clients? How do I go after and win some new deals? Think about your ideal customer profile. Think about your ideal customer profile message. And think about the ideal customer profile message that delivers the value. Thank you very much for your time. Happy selling.
What a fantastic episode this has been. Sean and Kevin unpacked the nuances of designing compelling offers, a critical component for any sales professional aiming to elevate their game. They dissected how an offer is not merely a product's list price or a routine discount, but an aspirational goal that enhances the customer's business or life. Understanding this fundamental concept transforms how we approach sales, turning proposals into opportunities for profound customer engagement and lasting business growth. Today's significant actionable item, reflecting on your client profiles, complements this discussion beautifully. By tailoring your client profiles, you ensure that your messaging and offers are not just seen but felt, resonating deeply with the needs and aspirations of your target audience. It's crucial to revisit this foundation of your sales strategy today, before the whirlwind of daily business blurs its importance. If you ever need sales or management guidance or are looking to grow your company, remember, Sean and Kevin are just a click away. Their contact details can be found in the show notes, where you can also access a quick 10-question assessment to gauge how well your company and sales team are performing in sales. So let this episode be your guide, whether you're refining your approach or building new strategies from scratch. Subscribe to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales on your favorite podcast player, and never miss an episode filled with invaluable insights like today's. Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, happy selling!